Hey everybody, it's Ad the Red and welcome back at long fucking last to Analogue, a hate story. Otherwise, it's a game I should have continued playing a very long time ago. There's a couple of I should have really continued playing. This it should be that difficult. It's just now. Anyway, yes. So I have last I remember I had a lot of new logs to read. A lot of new logs. I believe Mute was still the active AI. Don't know if I should really change it back to Hyun-ae yet, but for now anyway, let's stick with her just in case. I'm probably going to go back over the documents later anyway with Hyun-ae just to check and see if she has anything to say about them, but for now. Okay, so Osajin, when I first saw you bringing my husband home in the late hour of the night, I was jealous. All I could think of was my daughter and the first courtesan he'd had an affair with 9 years ago. With every brief glimpse of you that I saw as you passed through our home, my heart burned a little as if you embodied every single fault of my farce of a marriage. I will never send this letter because I know how ridiculous it sounds. For weeks, I, a noble wife, could be jealous of a poor courtesan. But you are young and beautiful, full of energy and grace. I am none of these things. I am an ancient relic of a time long past. Whoops. Right, that's change. Yeah. Only after you had been entertaining him for a month did I start to realize I was having what I was really feeling. True, I was jealous, but not of you, not for having a husband. I was jealous of my husband for having the affections of a girl so pretty as you. Oh. These are such ridiculous thoughts for a woman to have, I know, and even more ridiculous still is the way they have overwhelmed me. I used to dread my husband bringing his courtesans home with him. Now I look forward to your nights together. How could I not when it means I am treated to the sight of your bashful face in the morning? When you exchange glances, you hide behind your long hair with so much cuteness and grace. My eyes can't help but wander, to admire the way it rests on your breast, to see your clothes draped loosely over your hips. I cannot help myself from admiring your body as you try to hide from me. It is ridiculous to be so preoccupied with such thoughts, and perhaps I was better off having not realized them. Nevertheless, even though I may be as much of a woman as you are, I find myself longing for the same affections you shower my husband with. There's more to it than that. I would like to truly get to know you better. I like to imagine we have much in common aside from the obvious. When I see you hiding in the corridor in those mornings, I imagine wrapping my own arms around those lovely hips, sharing long conversations about our tribulations in life, discovering just how much alike we are, and perhaps I like to imagine we could share more than that. I have been married for 10 years to a man who has never paid me any attention for 9 of them. Perhaps my old age has made me bold, but I want more. The next time we see you, I promise I will say something. For all my 26 years, I have never felt a longing for anything this intensely. I do not care how wrong it is, as a wife and as a woman. I want you, Hana. Okay, then. I bet that wasn't what you were expecting from a noble wife, was it? No, not really, but hey, what I still have a hard time believing that she was really capable of sinking to that. Sinking to that? Oh, that's right. You're the one who's buried in the past. But, well, it totally does it even better, I'll show you. Let's smile. Just be warned, it's pretty depraved stuff. When you say depraved, do you just mean it's outside of the traditional, of tradition? Oh. Music's a little funky. To my lovely Sojin, you made it so easy, you know that? I've always wanted to be seduced. The more I learned about it, the better I got at it. The more I thought about how lucky men are that they'll get to be on the receiving end of it. It's always seemed like it would be so much fun. But that wasn't why I dropped my guard in front of you, by the way. I was actually really wary the whole time you were serving me breakfast. Do you want to know what I thought? I thought maybe you were trying to poison me. I mean, not seriously, of course, but it crossed my mind. So no, I really was guarded until you started talking. You know what was that got to me? Do tell me, how hard is it studying to be a courtesan? I answered modestly, oh, you know, there's nothing to learn, you just have it or you don't. The answer that any man would expect. But you wouldn't have any of that. You said, please don't lie. I actually want to know. It takes years, doesn't it? Speak. It takes years, is it not? That must be intense for a girl your age. Then you leaned in. I started to blab about how it kind of is pretty intense, and I only realized an hour later that I was staring into your eyes, telling you, proudly no less, about my whole life story. Our faces were barely a foot apart by the time I noticed what you'd done, and that was how you caught me totally off guard. I had no idea what to do. Should I touch you? What's the right body language in the situation? Was I even interpreting you right, or was it all in my head? Not even the slightest clue. You had me good. And you played it so well. You know, just the right moment to pull back and tell me to go on my way. But no, it left me wondering. Sojin, you made it so easy. Returning home, my heart was so fluttered, my feelings so confused, and all I could think about was you. You, the bored old wife of my patron, actually managed to seduce me just like that. I'd always wanted to know that feeling, and you know, it was everything I dreamed it to be. That's a really interesting little anecdote, actually. You want more from the whore? Oh, fuck off. Yeah, sure, I can do that. Here you go. This one in particular is just wow. Really wow. Yeah, it's super depraved, but man, it's also just, what a 16-year-old. Here, read it for yourself. How anyone can manage this, I do not know. Whenever I am with you, I feel as though there's so much pressure to be perfect, to not let you down, as if every hour of our being together is like a marriage interview with an emperor. And yet I can't stand it when you're gone. All I can think of all day is how I could hold your attention for next time. The night you snuck out knowing my husband was out, I was so terrified. You just suddenly appeared on my doorstep, your face veiled as if you were a noblewoman, and I knew I could hardly turn you away. Do you know why? For I immediately went to make you tea, making you wait in the room, to give me a chance to calm my nerves. Oh, okay, I see. Look, I was surprised to realize you were just as nervous as I, so I knew I could take advantage of that. I put both cups on the same side of the table and sat cross-legged. Come, I said, sit with me, and gestured. You were so graceful in sitting on my lap, your small body just the right size, and so that even though you couldn't help but blush. And so we drank tea together. But halfway through, you put your cup back down, and turned around so you were facing me, our heads just inches apart. You whispered, forget about the tea, and clasping my free hand, your tiny fingers intertwined with mine, you kissed me so softly. Up until that point, I had been so worried trying to figure out what I should do. Was I playing the man's role, or were you? But after smelling the scent of your breath and tasting the sweetness of your lips, how could I possibly ignore the passion stirring enough to care about such things? I put down my cup and took you by the chin, gently pushing you away. Oh, what longing and uncertainty was in your eyes at that moment, beautiful Hana. I smiled as I stared back on them, intoxicated with the fact that I had you literally now under my thumb. I unclasped our hands and undid the bow of your blouse, watching your lips quiver as I pulled open the flap covering your small breasts. Running my fingers along the edge, I admired just how soft they were, so perfectly shaped. Are you sure? You started to ask, but I silenced you with that kiss you were so eager for. You shivered as I enjoyed the taste of your mouth and were so very anxious when I stopped and turned you back around once more. Will you sing for me? I whispered into your ear. You nodded, and referring to your tray, I said, I'd love to write you a poem, Sojin. I responded, putting my hand up your skirt. Your poetry is beautiful, but hardly what I meant. Okay. Then I clasped your breast with my spare hand, delved deep with the other, and held you so very tight while I admired the loveliness of your voice. That got toward quick, didn't it? Well written, though. Okay, what derogatory nouns do you got to say now? Yeah. Oh, don't be so judgmental, you artificial. That one is just, wow. Anyway, I'll let you get back to reading. And you get back to living in the past, whatever. Great comeback. Couldn't even think of a fucking appropriate. You know what the first thing they teach you about this role is? Of course, I told you all about it. The first thing to teach you is to never fall in love. I'm in love with a stripper. Nobody would ever actually say, make sure you're in control, but that's the only way it'll ever work well. I'm supposed to be the one making people fall for me. Love is for men stupid enough to buy me out from the Emperor, not for me personally. I know exactly how a man should do it, but Sojin, you got me all the same. You know they teach us poetry because if you appeal to men's vanity and seem a little bit clever, it's a good way to hold on to them and get them to keep paying. But the flattering kind, sincerity never really factors too much. An abandoned line from the one I've been trying to write for you. You grab my heart just as tightly as you grab my breast. Too trite, it's true, but I'm not going to dump such a lousy metaphor on you. For you, you absolutely deserve sincerity. It has nothing to do with vanity and everything you do to do with the fact that I really do totally love you. It's not sexual. I mean, it is sexual too, but I still get hot thinking of how you had your way with me and how I want to return the favor, but it's not just that. It's that you understand me, that you listen to me. I can pour my heart out in front of you. I can cry in front of you and you get it. You don't feel bad. You don't feel pity. You don't use it as an excuse to manhandle me. You just get it and comfort me by being there and listening. I love you, Sojin. I'm not supposed to, but I really do. As sweet as that is, and all, and actually somewhat depressing considering the context, how is this going to end tragically and horrifyingly? Oh, I love you. Oh, fuck off. Wow, just wow. You know, I kind of feel pity for her. She probably really did think that actually was love. Which is just, come on, how uneducated can you be? Anyway, I guess we're gonna see more now, right? That's really just the shocking details you've seen so far. Here's the part where things actually get scandalous. I've added 3 more entries. Okay, out of curiosity, are the next 3 in line? No. Okay. Because my art isn't. What the hell is this then? It was only after I finally started to become comfortable with you, confident that you really were mine, and I didn't have to work to impress you that things got complicated. Okay. My husband had left for the day, and you were still lingering, having spent the night with him. But it was for me that you had a new love poem, and I undressed you while you sang it. When you were done, you clung to me, stripping me in turn while I simply kissed you and ran my hands from your tiny waist to your smooth ankles. And soon enough, we were both naked. At first, I had felt so uncomfortable exposing my body like that to you. As you'd see it then, finally realize how old I am. But you never did seem to mind, not as you placed soft kisses on my breast, or as you straddled me with your legs around my waist and arms around my neck. Wait a minute. Didn't one of the previous letters say she was 26? Okay, either A, this is the leap theory. Either A, they age quicker, or on the ship, or for some reason, or she was aging more rapidly than normal, or B, and via Occam's razor, this would sound the more reasonable option. Is this one of those things where, like, 26 is considered old? Like, oh, you're just a spinster now. You're over the age of 20. Oh, you're ancient. You're dusty. Because it's probably why I shouldn't think you look. Well, then again, I'm not gonna be so shallow as to say that, you can't find someone attractive who isn't, who looks really young or something. Personal preference and all, and in some cases people can look past their preference. I'm not gonna wax on about this, but I'm just putting that out there. Trying to consider all the options available, and seeing as how the only context I have is, I'm pretty sure she said she was 26, unless that was, I don't know. Anyway, but you never did seem to mind that as you placed soft kisses on my breast, or as you straddled me with your legs around my waist and arms around my neck. So entranced was I at the moment that I never heard the footsteps outside. We had just started to kiss when the door suddenly opened. What a scene to walk into. There my husband was, in the doorway, his courtesan and wife naked together, mouth still connected by a strand. For a moment, nobody said anything. In that time, I felt a terror as never before in my life. Sangmin is not a gentleman, and while he hardly ever raised his hand to me, I was still overwhelmed with the horror that he might hurt me, or even worse, that he would hurt you. I had seduced you, but in that moment I realized if he did try, there was nothing I could do to protect you. But just as we were stammering our "I'm sorry, sirs," he just laughed and laughed. Well, he said, ogling us with that cold stare of his, I'm certainly paying you enough for two. Then he walked over and raised his hand, and I stared in horror, but all he did was pat you on the head as if you were a child. I don't know what she told you, but you don't have to pay any attention to her. You just ignore her, really. All you could do was to stammer, I wanted to. You were both so afraid, but he just laughed and shrugged. Whatever, he said as he passed through the door. Neither of us knew what to do, other than climb off each other and scramble to cover ourselves back up. While we both clumsily tried to dress ourselves, Sungmin walked back through the room once more, carrying a satchel. He'd forgotten it for work, I suppose. Don't stop on my account. If you ask permission, you can do whatever the hell you want, he said. Then he laughed again. Don't know what you think you're even going to do, though. Aren't you two missing something? Lovely sentiment. Absolutely wonderful. Backwards cultures. I wish you'd struck me instead. It would have hurt me far less than what he said or what you had to watch me do. What lovely color commentary do you have to add, bitch? Just imagine that scene, her and the whore pleading with her husband, being mocked like that. Yeah, it's really depressing. What do you make of that? Pitiful. Because they had it coming was way too cruel. I know, right? I mean, really, what an awful, pitiful scene. Pitiful is, it's not even, I mean, it's like, to me, my interpretation of saying pitiful is pitiful on the part of him, acting like a complete and total asshole. Pitiful they had to be ridiculed like that. I mean, really, what an awful, pitiful scene. It's not, I'm not saying he didn't have the right to say those things. Of course he did. That's his prerogative. And sure, she was a bad wife. He's not like a bad husband. But still, even if he had the right, that is a shitty way to treat her. Okay, no, I actually agree with you there. What? Okay, surprise, surprise. You actually shocked me. I agree with you. That was a shitty way to treat her, yes, word for word. He should have been a better man than that. Just really, what a pathetic scene. Just absolutely pathetic. He should have been ashamed, not laughing. Okay, maybe he should have been a little bit ashamed, because he kind of drove his wife to that, I suppose, in a sense. She seemed to have been missing any kind of intimacy, or even really just an emotional connection to her spouse. Someone finally kind of returned it, even though she initiated the interaction. But someone did give her something she was looking for, so she went for it. You know, the unfortunate circumstance being that for a healthy relationship, she had to hook up with a hooker. That sounds way more derogatory than I admitted to, but point being, just no sense of shame. I'm glad you think so too. Anyway, I'll let you get back to reading. I still think our mentalities line up here. They're mute. Hana. Okay. It's so unfair. Why couldn't you have been born a man instead? Okay. Sure, you lose your beauty and the gentleness I love about you, but at least you'd be able to do something. And Songmin would be jealous out of thinking of you as completely unthreatening. I just know you want to be able to stand up for me. Just killing me to see that you're powerless to. Right now he's happy to keep me around. You know, it gets him off to have something to hold over my head. I had no idea you were so lustful that you didn't settle for a woman, he says. What's that like? Better than being with you! The worst part, I know the only way to keep seeing you is to play along. Oh, well, you know, for a girl my age, I respond and press my hands against my face to look like I'm embarrassed. It's just playing. It's not the same without, you know. I trail off because he thinks it's so cute and I'm too ashamed to say the word cock. Poor girl, he says as he roughly gropes me, and I force all those soft moans and gas to make him think that he's really making me happy, and I say awful things, love. I say such awful things about you, it kills me. It just kills me. And then I beg just to see more of you. I don't know what leaves a worse taste in my mouth, him or those words. What else can I do? I'm sorry, Sojin. I know the last time I talked with you, all I did was cry. Thanks for not asking. It was just so hard to hold it all in while smiling cutely for your husband. We have the worst fate ever, don't we? Yeah, kinda. Well, yeah. I guess you probably also find that sort of thing cute, right? No! It's sad. She's having to put on an act, degrading herself, and knowing that she's putting down someone she cares about in the process to please some prick. An act is... That's why a smart man stays the hell away from horrors. Deception is just what they do. Well, and it's women in general, I guess, when I think about it. And you don't count because you're a program? Still, I bet if he'd read what she'd written, or he would... No, I think that's a tit. As I say, are you a trap? Still, I bet if he'd read what she'd written there, he'd never have wanted to sleep with her. I mean, he'd probably kill her. What it should do is make him feel ashamed of himself for being, you know, less of a man. Anyway, I'll let you get back to reading. I just want to make sure I'm not skipping anything. Okay. The last time we spoke, I poured wine for you rather than the usual tea. It seemed as though you needed it. I held you tight while you drank, petting your hair and wiping away every tear that dropped from those deep, sad eyes. He's going to get bored eventually, you had said, and though I tried to comfort you, you both knew it to be true. I could try pressuring him to buy you, I had offered. It was our only option, really. If you didn't, you'd simply return to the service of the government to be rented out to who knows who, and we would never meet again. Thanks, he said. Do you think he'll listen, you asked? I wish nothing more than be able to lie to you. To say, of course I did, that it'll be all right. No, I said. I couldn't. We sat for a long time in silence. Finally, I said, even that would be worse than you deserve. He owns me, and see how I am treated? I wish you could have far better. Sorry, he said. Please, please don't be. All this is my fault. If I had just been a good wife and left well alone, all this heartbreak could have been avoided, I said, trying to calm me, but you only cried more. When you had no more tears left, he spoke again. What about the other courtesan he bought? The real mother of me. What if you blackmailed him? If only. I would do it gladly if you, but the royal family knows already. I shot off my mouth in front of Mute once without thinking, and soon enough, it was all my fault too. You! Oh, you said. What if I gave him a son, you suggested, even though I already knew how appalling the thought was to you. And I couldn't help but laugh when you thought of why it would never work. Oh, Hana, I said. Do you think the reason I've never gotten pregnant was for lack of trying? I stroked your cheek. In the months you've been with him, has your period been disrupted even once? No, you said as you realized what I was saying. It would never work. As tears fell from your eyes once more, I started to laugh. I figured it was just, you know, all chance. I shook my head. No child in the first year of marriage that is chance, I said, laughing sadly. Whether he is too proud or too stupid to realize, I know not. One child in 11 years of marriage? That is not chance. That is an impotent man raising someone else's daughter. You looked at me, realizing the plan was doomed. There aren't any real men in this house, are there? You said finally. We laughed and laughed. Your future's so sadly uncertain. Yep. Damn. I'm sympathetic to her and all, I really am, but okay, I'm a little less skeptical about that now because you did seem to show some amount of emotion last time, but look, I still had to tell my mistress about all of it. I couldn't just hide that. And frankly, I don't think she should have been gossiping about it, not least of all to a whore. Doing unspeakable things to her, well, that's messed up. It only affects herself. But telling the whore about her husband's failings? That's just reckless. It could harm the whole family. Really, it's only just realistically harm him, but... None of the family needed any help submitting his ruin at that point. But it's the principle of the thing, it's still wrong. Anyway, I'll do it to reading. Brought home. Having. These past few months have left me so very anxious with anticipation. Nearly a year has passed since the wedding ceremony, and before this week, Songmin had only visited my family once, promising he'd bring me home with him for sure next time. I know I'm supposed to be enjoying living with my parents while it lasts, but all I can think about is my husband. How is a new bride expected to have such patience? For nearly a year, a day hasn't gone by where I haven't thought of how beautifully he thought me in my wedding dress, or how it felt spending that night held so gently in his strong hands, looking forward to the day where I could live in his house. I can't help but feel as anxious in my heart as I am excited in my hips. Wow. Fantasies of the past, shattered by the future of a cruel reality. I know it's ungrateful to think of such things, but how can I help myself? In any event, he arrived yesterday to take me with him to his ancestral shrine and then finally his home. Such luxury I've never seen in my life. A servant to prepare meals, entirely separate women's quarters, and a dining room with a window that shows the stars. My family was hardly all that poor, but a window to the stars? How amazing a sight. I knew that I was lucky to have been married to a noble family. I had never realized just how lucky. I wonder if I'll have time to write as much as I used to. Oh, but I must stop for tonight now. I can hear my husband coming. I have been looking forward to this night for so long now. I hope I can make him happy. Just hearing his footsteps outside the door makes my heart pound. And the juxtaposition of that with a similar future event of hearing footsteps approaching, just, a proper damn gentleman. I cannot believe just 2 years ago I was actually excited about moving into the Smith home with my husband. Oh, how shortly that lasted. I find it funny. The first time I realized that I would have to compete for his affection with every common woman and every courtesan he came across, I was so shocked. The first time he brought one home, I cried for a week, and mother-in-law was furious with me, claiming it was my fault for not being enough for him. Now I realize the insanity of her reasoning, as if she wouldn't have known her son was simply that sort of man. The only person who had any right to be shocked was me. Still, I struggled for his attention, but now it is all but banal. If the truth is to be told, this is something I would not tell mother-in-law, nor mute, nor least of all my husband. I do not even fight for his affections for his own sake. It is pure selfishness on my part. All I wish for is some indicator that it isn't as though I'm unattractive, that it isn't as though I'm unlikable. Any affection he gets is simply an attempt at fishing that affirmation out of him and nothing more. Yeah, that's... Okay, here we go. Aha! A transcription fragment from a conversation held with Smith Songjung. Oh, that was how I knew shit had gotten serious. He actually agreed to let me pick the drinking house he went to. My oldest brother only ever humors me when he's really trying to get on my good side. It's never a good sign. Well, I mean, it's good for me, but certainly not for him. I'm sure a classy lady such as yourself wouldn't be familiar with this sort of place. No, you're not the sort. You know the sort. Tucked away in an interior deck, lots of wood furniture that's been stained, and not intentionally, with just enough commoners milling about to give a good background soundtrack. Oh, and it's run by a woman. Nice lady, too. It was that sort of place. We arranged to meet up at the door. It's been a while, brother. I'm sorry I couldn't speak to you sooner, he said, trying to be polite. You're full of shit, I said, but hey, it's good to see you. So what do you want? I meant it, he said. He's a bad, bad liar. So why here anyway? At that point, the owner came by asking what we'd like. The only real thing he didn't know about Hyun-ae is that she's around my age. She's got the biggest tits I've ever seen in my life, and she's just a commoner. So you can certainly see them. Oh, he said, fair enough. Wait, what?
Bring your finest soju, I ordered, please, she responded. You can afford our finest.
Totally not true, but by the way, my reputation for being a cheap drunk, completely unfounded. Honestly, I have no idea where people get these crazy ideas from. Anyway, far be it for me to argue. I just reply, maybe not, my brother can. I mean, I knew he was going to ask me for money, that was obvious. Might as well get as much as I could out of him before giving whatever he wanted, right? Fine, I'll be sharing that, he said. Then added, but how much to share with you too, she blushed. Amazing, really. She's got a lot of practice dealing with people like my brother, but I saved her the misery of having to flirt back with him. Do you really need more of that kind of trouble right now? With that, he let her go. Anyway, drinks came. We argued with the loose definition of finest, our server's tits, in the good old days, when father was still alive and we didn't have to work out our problems ourselves. The biggest bullshit ever, I said, is that we're expected to be responsible men here. How'd that happen? He laughed, and was now drunk enough to start taking cheap shots. Is that why you never bothered to be one? Ouch, I said. Damn it, hurry up and pour me more. I'll drink to that. He poured, but didn't say anything. Alright, so what is it you want? I'm getting the impression you have a problem and you want discretion because you're talking to me, right, brother? I was right. So where'd you put it this time, brother? I asked. Put what? He replied. Oh, cut the shit, I said. We both know full well that all your problems in life have always, without fail, stem from you putting your dick somewhere you shouldn't have. He grunted in disagreement, but it's totally true. Was there at least a female this time? Swear to my father, brother was right about to punch me. Didn't though. And instead he just downed his drink. Yeah, that's a damn problem, he said. She's saying she hasn't bled in 2 months now. A courtesan. I promised I'd help him. Better she get bought up by me than my brother, the high magistrate. Less suspicious that way and involves nothing unlawful. Believe me now? A proper gentleman, that's me. Well, this is what I told him at the time. I could have maybe, done without the description of her breasts. But that kind of story was definitely pretty common for him. The part where he cleaned up after his family's mess, I mean, not the details of immoral-looking common women. And, well, the drinking too. But look, that part, he had a good cause for. Sure, it was his ruin, but you can't blame him for that. I mean, the stuff he had to put up with. If you'd had like that, I'm sure you did the same. I don't know. It wasn't all that bad, really. We'd spend a lot of evenings drinking together, talking long into the night. Well, he would, anyway. Obviously not really so much drinking on my part. But he was the kind of man who'd still pour a glass all the same. So the whole sarcastic thing about him being a proper gentleman, it's not sarcastic, he really was. Well, he was being sarcastic, but still. He totally, absolutely was the best damn gentleman around. If you say so? Daughter. Quick drink as well. Okay. For the past 2 months, ever since it became impossible to hide that she was a child, Zhang has been living in our house, and no visitors have been allowed to come in. It has created an incredibly awkward state of affairs. I can hardly stand to be in the same room with that courtesan, let alone live with her. Until recently, so few words have we exchanged. I did not even know her name till the 3rd week of her living here. My husband made me agree to go along with the fiction that the child was actually mine, which, well, I've yet to give him one myself, so if that is how I'm to make up for it, then this is what I'll do. I thought it was going to be so hard to keep that pretense and pretend that this child is my own while the real mother lives under the same roof. Yet apparently not. As it turns out, the whole charade has been for absolutely nothing. After all of that, the child turned to be a girl. Of course, I'm sure Zhang is quite happy since she's already been bought out in the hopes that we can pretend her son is mine. But an illegitimate daughter? Well, who cares? Ooh. It would almost be funny if not for the fact that it means I would have to live with that constant reminder of how little my husband cares for me. Almost. But not really. High Magistrate Smith Songmin, huh? Well, as High Magistrate, he was one of the highest ranking officials until just before the end. I don't want to paint a misleading portrait. As I understand, he was a very just man and performed his function quite well. It was politics that caught up to him in the end. It's like I reported to my mistress, Liu Zhaihua, whatever. He might have been a good magistrate, but his family conduct was less than the pinnacle of virtue. How many wives a man takes is no business but his own. And never did anything illegal, but knocking up courtesans over the court? Man, that's just bad politics. And, well, you saw what kind of neglect that did. It forced his wife to seek comfort wherever she could find it. That's why he lost his position. Years of embarrassment in the family finally culminated in him turning into a real liability for the Emperor. But it wasn't always like that. Here, let me try and paint an even portrait of him for you. I've added an assortment of logs about him. Hope this gives a good idea of what I mean. Would one of those potentially be the one up there? Nope. I'll just keep reading it over. I'm sorry. Uncle Daiho. Oh, look, I'm sorry about our last conversation, alright? It's like I said to you before, you just caught me at a really bad time. Sojun was kept in bed rest on strict doctor's orders. I'm sorry that you brought your wife all the way to get turned away like that. When I told Sojun that you had given her well wishes on her pregnancy, she was happy, but sad she couldn't see you herself. Our child was born last week, a daughter. We decided to name her Min-hee. Sojun is recovering well. The doctor said that it would be fine for her to see visitors next week. I'm sorry I got angry. If your wife wants to see mine or the child or my mother, by all means you're welcome to visit. I hope there's no hard feelings, Uncle. Songmin. No luck. The wife of Sung-kyu. You can probably put this more diplomatically than I can, but I'm pretty sure younger brother is still thoroughly pissed off at me. You know how he is, of course. I don't have the time to deal with that, especially when I'm already doing him a huge favor. The bad news is I made an appeal to the captain and Emperor himself personally, but he said there was no position that a man of Sung-kyu's skill set could possibly fulfill. I did most certainly plead, but let's face it, what official role could that man possibly fill? He's an idiot. Don't pass on that last part, he already knows. I did, however, speak to the Park son, and was able to convince him to forget the whole incident. It wasn't cheap, I might add. I'll continue to send your family a regular stipend, but please keep your husband under control. I can't afford to keep cleaning up after his damn fights. Politics! Drama! I know it's like Songmin is just being harsh on his little brother, but I assure you, his characterization isn't wrong. I honestly kind of tended to avoid him. I was friends with his older brother's wife, and his younger brother was an absolute gentleman, but he was not a very nice man. He was the sort of person that the court exams were supposed to keep out in theory. Didn't work, of course. He studied just as well as brothers, or so Sung-jun told me. Here, what is the usual behavior you get from this from Sung-kyu? I've had another entry. This one, This one by the Kim son. Okay. Beep, beep, beep. My husband was out of the house, as he usually is during the day, so our servant fetched me instead to tell me that someone was at the door. I was in the middle of a conversation with Mute, but I had no idea I was expected to respond to that. What do I asked her. She's responded in that usual shocking, crass manner of hers. Gee, I don't know. You could try answering the door, maybe? Just a thought, of course. So I excused her when to do that, but with a great degree of nervousness. I had never done this before. At the door was my youngest brother-in-law, Sung-jun, who had only met a few times before, although her husband mentioned him often enough, usually in the same breath as calling him an irresponsible drunk. Seeing him did nothing short of compound my anxieties. Hello, sir, I stammered. Sojin, he greeted with unbelievable volume. It's great to see you again. Hope you don't mind my dropping by unannounced. I just figured I haven't seen my new niece yet, and it's been forever since I've been in the old house, so, well, I thought I'd stop by to say hello to your daughter. I don't know. Sorry, my husband isn't home right now. Maybe you come back later, I said, shifting uncomfortably. Oh, please, be a good girl. Let me come see her. I'm really not here for your husband. This was awkward. I didn't exactly want to turn away my brother-in-law, especially if he just wanted to see baby Min-hee, but this was hardly proper. It really wouldn't be my place. Sorry, you'll just have to wait until my husband gets back, I trailed off. He rolled his eyes and smiled at me. Really? Come now, you're a smarter woman than that, he said, and put his hand on my shoulder. This had now moved on to incredibly uncomfortable. You really value his authority that much? He's my husband, I responded. What else could I say? He replied, wow, no wonder he walks all over you, if that's how you treat him. You've got a lot to learn about dealing with men, dear Sojin, especially my brother. Look, come on, this is a bad conversation for a doorway. Can't I see my niece? I hear she's rather adorable. I took a deep breath. I'm sorry, I said, trying to be as bold as I could. I'm going to have to go now. Sorry. I started to close the door on him. Alright, I understand. I'll talk to myself later. Don't worry, I won't mention this visit. Do say hello to her mother for me, though, he said, and left. My heart nearly skipped a beat when he said those words. I stood in the doorway for a good while, stunned. Even now, I still have much to think about. Not simply his knowledge of our child's true mother, a matter of great secrecy, but also what he said about my husband. Perhaps his words were true. Man, reading that, I just can't believe that's her. She used to be so timid. Thinking of me as having a shocking, crass manner, or being afraid of her brother-in-law at the door? Well, it's not what I expected from her at the time. She just changed a whole lot as she got older. Well, honestly, maybe not as much as I thought. She might have gotten bolder behind her husband's back, but in front of him, that never really changed so much. What do you think? Should she have listened to Song Jung about being less deferential to her husband? Yes. Well, of course. Song Jung wasn't wrong, you know. Sure, she's his wife, but absolutely no part of her responsibility does involve getting walked all over. Frankly, it would have been better for her if she had stood up to him a bit. If her husband wasn't being satisfied at home, well, I mean, I feel bad for her, but he was totally right. It is her fault. Either way, well, she did change in some ways. In some ways, not for the better, as you've seen with her relationship with that whore. It's why it amazes me so much rereading something that old, knowing that she would later sink to. Oh well. Piss off. A clerk, legendary temper. Okay. Now, I've been a clerk for a while, and it's not as if I haven't heard the stories about Magistrate Smith Song Min and his legendary temper, but I always figured they were an exaggeration, especially after I met him for the first time. The man seemed like the absolute model of a gentleman, rather calm and unemotional. I'm not criticizing him, I just never imagined that man getting angry. It was while an official was presenting the facts of a murder case to him. A drunken brawl between peasants gone horribly wrong. It all seemed satisfactory enough. A dozen men had seen it. There wasn't really any doubt about it. So far, so good. Very well, the High Magistrate said. Let me read the confession then before I pass the sentence. The official didn't have one, which is reasonable enough. A lot of times they can't get it out of them. I've never seen a magistrate who was really all too concerned with the little details. Excuse me? You don't have a confession, he said. And his mood soured right there. Why are you wasting my time then? He looked over at the accused who'd been kowtowing himself at that point. You! Do you even admit to killing him? The murderer seemed confused, and it took a minute to realize he's being addressed. Furthermore, when he did figure out, he simply kept mumbling, not my fault, wasn't my fault and such. The High Magistrate was furious. What is wrong with you? What is this man doing in front of me and stuff like that? He does admit to doing it. What do you expect me to do? He demanded. After some silence in the official, he continued. It wasn't a rhetorical question. Please, enlighten me. What do you expect me to do here? To punish him? The official finally offered weakly, as confused the matter as I was. Punish him? This was what set him completely off the edge. He stood up, shouting, We are not given the responsibility of punishment. What are we, barbarians looking for vengeance? The point of justice is to teach immoral men like him the error of their ways, he lectured at the top of his lungs. And how do you expect to do that? And how do you expect to do that with a man who won't even admit his own actions? Does this man look like he's ready to learn? Do you seriously believe that? Are you simple? The official looked as though he was going to argue, but then thought against it. Smart move. The High Magistrate continued more calmly. Now stop wasting my time and get him out of my office. Come back when you have a confession and a clue as to what your job actually entails. And with that, he left, leaving the official speechless and leaving me realizing that perhaps a legendary temper and being a model gentleman weren't quite so mutually exclusive as I had thought. See, he wasn't always that bad. I mean, okay, there isn't actually a staggering amount of reason to his position there. If the guy hadn't outright admitted, I mean, well, at the same time, they were apparently not but yeah. Complicated situations. legal matters are, especially in situations like involving that kind of comic murder. He was an embarrassment and far from a pinnacle of virtue. I didn't think that highly of him, but at the end of the day, it was about politics, not about his character. Okay. Drank himself to death. Oh boy. As horrible as it is to say, I don't think anyone is really surprised when brother-in-law Sung Jung was found dead. Nobody asked how, nor has anyone so much as mentioned the word drinking in my presence since. Even the ordinarily extremely candid mute has been entirely somber. Mother-in-law, I understand why she's been taking it so hard, and have been working hard, well, to stay out of her way while the funeral preparations are being settled. Ugh. But mute? I had no idea they were so close, yet in our last conversation I could have sworn she was on the verge of tears. I'd never seen such a reaction from her in all my time here. As for my... I haven't missed those, have I? As for myself, I have an awful confession I can make to no one. I have to put on a somber face, acting as though I am as sad as the rest, since that is, of course, what is expected. But it pains me to admit that I'm not. It's not as if I don't find it tragic, and I feel bad for thinking this. But I didn't know him at all. How could I possibly bring myself to feel as upset as I'm expected to be? No emotional connection, you're not really going to have much of an emotional response, even if you're going through the tragedy of death and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's understandable. Well, you've seen most everything about the Smith family now, except the most scandalous stuff. I'm sort of wondering what you think of their fall. I don't know, really. The family as a whole, as an entirety, discounting certain individuals, I don't... It sounds like they really did go downhill, and they were involved... As callous as it sounds, I kind of think maybe they had it coming, at least in terms of their own actions sort of weighing up to it, not in a karmic sense. Well, I suppose actually your actions going to bite you in the ass to have a karmic. Well. Yeah, it's fair enough. I don't really blame you for being interested or anything. I have the feeling it's sort of perversely entertaining to watch great men fall. And anyone could see it coming. It was inevitable after Song Jung died. Anyway, regardless of whether you think it should have happened or not, it was a pretty terrible thing that happened to what used to be the greatest noble family. And certainly they didn't deserve to be brought down with the Kim family, then murdered by the Kim daughter. Maybe it's... I don't want to say that Song Jung was lucky, but that's not true. If he was around, maybe things would have turned out better. He always had a way of making things perfect. Still... I'd rather he be killed by his own habit than by that girl. He deserved better than what he got, but it would have been even worse if not for that. Is I guess what I'm saying. I hadn't really thought about it that way before. Really, were he around, that's totally what he'd say. Practically imagine his voice even. The drink will inevitably kill you, and women will inevitably kill you, so I'd rather take the one that isn't always bitter. Or something like that. Yeah. Well, anyway, that's enough of that. Of course, I was on the verge of tears. He meant a lot to me. I mean, you know, I'm just a computer. He wasn't family or anything. It's not like I had the body for that kind of relationship. But still, he was the closest thing I had to a husband. We had a really close relationship. I really did love him. I definitely can't forgive him for not sincerely mourning his death. Or not taking it seriously. He was a great man. I'm just disappointed in her. It really is an awful confession. He really did deserve much better. So much better. Even the computers have fucking feelings now. Great. Right. I'm gonna go ahead and end this episode here. me talking for basically almost an hour straight is not doing wonders for my voices. Voices. The ones in my head. In any case, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. This game is still extremely interesting, and I want to continue and finish it and then go on to the other one. Hopefully, there won't be a huge gap. Not between this and the next installment, but anyway, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next episode.